more big news out of the weekend. It was UFC 287 in Miami. One hell of a main event. Israel Adesanya ends up with the second round knockout over Alex Pereira. And I got to tell you what he needed to overcome to get that knockout leading up to the fight and during the fight itself. Probably one of the more impressive things I've ever seen in the UFC. First of all, he was in a 0-3 hole versus the guy. Of course, he lost to him twice in kickboxing. He got knocked out in one of those fights. He got knocked out in their first fight in the UFC, and it was a real kind of a fork in the road type of a situation for Adesanya, because if he would have lost that fight, what would have been next for him? You know, he might not have had anywhere to go, and wouldn't have been it for his UFC career by any means whatsoever. But it was just incredibly impressive, and the sequence that led to the knockout, too, was absolutely amazing. It looked like Pereira was going in for the kill. He had him get up against the cage, trying to land those body shots. And I guess Adesanya just completely baited him. Knocked him right out cold. Now, that was a very similar sequence to in the first fight, in the first round. Adesanya rattled him quite badly at the end of the first round in that one. So he kind of went back to the well on that type of strategy. And it led to a victory. So one thing afterwards, some real prisoner of the moment stuff with UFC fans, people shouting out and tweeting out, the best middleweight of all time. The best middleweight ever. Pump the brakes a little bit here, guys. Have you forgotten about a guy named Anderson Silva? A lot of people, I don't consider Anderson Silva the best of all time, but many do. So pump the brakes on that. You know, he can absolutely get there. He's still in his early 30s, but he's not the best middleweight of all time. So calm down a little bit about that. So what's next for Adesanya here? There's no clear-cut contender here, no clear-cut person who's deserving of the next title shot, and that's because of his greatness in this division. He's taken out all the top guys in the division, so what can you make a case for? Robert Whittaker, maybe? He's beaten him twice already. The second fight was close. You want to come in with that debate? I would maybe say set up a fight between Whittaker and Costa. They were supposed to fight earlier this year. That fell apart. You can make that fight and say that's for the number one contender. This guy, Dricus Duplessis, ranked number 6 in the middleweight division right now. He might get put on a fast track to a title shot. I still do think he needs one more win. But ultimately, I think this all leads up to Adesanya taking a nice long break. This has been one of the more active champions over the past couple of years. So don't be shocked if he doesn't fight again here in 2023. Iain, your thoughts on Adesanya and the event as a whole, UFC 287 over the weekend?
Yeah, I only caught the main event, unfortunately. I went to a showing of Phantom of the Opera. It is the final week that Phantom of the Opera is on Broadway, Joe. No big news about that. So,
who gives a shit? Who cares?
I did catch the main event, though. I got home in time for the main event. Talk about just an all-time emotional win for a fighter. A guy who, Pereira was this guy's demon with the amount of times that he beat him. And was really, Pereira was on his way to winning again. And then to get that knockout by Adesanya, that's got to be one of the most emotional wins in UFC history. So good for Adesanya. I do think the next guy that he's going to fight is how do you pronounce his name? Duplessis? The South African guy?
Yeah, Duplessis, yeah. A lot of people don't like him because he claims like he's the real African fighter, and a lot of people take exception to that. Usman had a real problem with it, to the point that Usman said he wanted to move up to 185 to fight him. Now, Adesanya indirectly called him out in the press conference. He wouldn't say his name as a bit of a way to insult him, I think. But at number 6, coming off a win versus Jared Cannonier, do you get that fight?
No, maybe. I think Adesanya rests and takes some time off. This guy gets one more big win, and then you set up the title fight maybe early next year.